next session is a panel discussion on the theme Engaging Rural Women as Drivers of Change, Experiences from Fintech Solutions. Our panel comprises a trio of dynamic and highly engaged entrepreneurs who are joining us remotely. I welcome Ms. Ajaita Shah. Ajaita Shah is the founder and CEO of Frontier Markets and the president of Frontier Innovations Foundation. Frontier Markets connects rural customers to high-impact, high-quality, climate-friendly, and gender-inclusive products, including clean energy services, by investing in rural women entrepreneurs in last-mile village communities. Our second panelist is Mr. Puneet Gupta, the co-founder of Kaleidofin Private Limited. Mr. Puneet Gupta co-founded Kaleidofin with Ms. Sucharita Mukherjee in 2017 in an effort to address the unique financial needs of over 600 million underbanked and unbanked Indians engaged in the informal economy. Today, Kaleidofin is a neobank with a fintech platform that propels underbanked customers towards meeting their real-life goals by providing intuitive and tailored financial solutions. Joining us today as our third panelist is Mr. Anilkumar SG, founder and CEO of Samunnati. Samunnati offers financial, co-financial, and non-financial solutions to marginal, small, and medium holding farmers and agri-enterprises, plus wholesalers and retailers. Samunnati has its presence in over 54 value chains spread across 19 states and works with over 500 farmer producer organizations, predominantly serving smallholder farmers across India. The panel discussion will be moderated by Mr. Sanjay Jain, who is the Chief Innovation Officer at CIGO. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you, Trisha, for this wonderful welcome. I was observing the rest of the session today, and it was very exciting to see the kind of research that we are witnessing. But to come to our panel, I think today we are going to be looking at issues around how, from the entrepreneurial ecosystem, we can build products that could then help to empower women and then provide welfare to them. So, Ajaita, let me start with you. I mean, Ajaita, you work with Sahelis who then help the participation in commerce at the local level in rural India. So tell me what you have learned and how you have adapted your products for rural women in particular.
Thank you so much for that, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me on this incredible panel, and also I think a very important topic. So couple of things. So one is that just to understand for everyone how our model actually operates is we work with local and we're giving them a digital platform, our Meri Saheli social commerce app, that they're then using to essentially help their rural customers in the village where they live access all kinds of products and services, from appliances to agriculture inputs to financial services, digital payments, and essential services, where they are then connecting the customers to those products. They're earning income, of course, based on the sales that they generate, but then they're also getting access to income for their efforts in data collection and insight generation, which is a really critical piece in terms of how we've been able to then design our products for our customers. All of our Sahelis today, all 10,000 of them, have been given the skills and the training to use everything from Google Forms to our own app to collect really intense data on each and every one of their rural households. So each Saheli today has about 50 households. And what she's collecting as data is not just about a household data, but actually really mapping each person in that family. So from the mother to the father to the child to the adolescent girl, to truly understand the pains and the opportunities that she can actually then bring into convert as services. How we support her is that we essentially then aggregate that data. And then through our data system, we actually generate insights to truly understand what products and services can we introduce that will help her convert her customers more effectively and then introduce that. So because she works with the SAG network, she has a very strong network to women. And therefore, she's really being able to capture gender inclusive data. To give you some small examples of how we've adapted our product portfolio. One example is up until 2 years ago, we weren't really working with agri inputs, but because of COVID and the lockdown, a lot of these women were not being allowed to go and for fasal. They were at home. So they suddenly were responsible for having to collect the cattle feed for their buffaloes. And for them, walking 5 kilometers to pick up 50 kgs of cattle feed was too much. So we took that nugget, converted that into a doorstep delivery opportunity, and all of a sudden 100,000 women farmers were able to get cattle feed on a monthly basis. So that's one example. A second example I can give to you is on financial services. So very specifically, we've learned that women want to be able to do savings, but then also savings to get a loan for consumer durables during Diwali or wedding seasons. So we were able to then partner with Bajaj and actually design a 0% EMI consumer durable product that was specifically linked to women who were starting to save money so they could actually cover that 30% upfront investment to get their loan. This increased their loan capabilities or access to loans by literally almost 10x, because the biggest challenge that they were having to get their scores for Bajaj's loans was that they didn't have that 30% of upfront capital to share for that product. So these are just 2 examples, but I think what we've learned very critically is there's a clear trend of, if we're able to get deep insights through our Saheli networks, who are really able to connect with these women in a very profound way, we're able to then design at scale and really start bringing in other partners to our platform to be able to create gender inclusive products and services. Thank you.
Thanks, Ajaita, for that. And let me turn to you, Anil. Anil, I mean, at Samunnati, you work in the entire agri supply chain. So you've got deep down roots into rural India. And, would like to, again, hear from you on how your product design is helping to empower women, particularly in rural India.
Thank you, Sanjay. It's wonderful to be here, and was also listening to the earlier presentation and the comments of Pallavi. We, as an entity, are in agriculture, and we are a value chain enabler. And perhaps agriculture is one activity where the participation of women is so significant. They are in a way like co-pilots in the entire family enterprise, but often don't get either referred or given the credit for the contribution that goes in their contribution to the family enterprise, because it's a family enterprise, right? So we look at the gender dimension in agriculture from 2 perspectives. One perspective is, what are the value chains that employ women predominantly? Second is, women as change makers. How can we work with women to increase the collectivization? So let me focus on the value chains that employ women as the contributors. Dairy as a value chain is one value chain where the participation of women is significant. And 2, fruits and vegetables is usually the other value chain where, in addition to cultivation, there is also grading, sorting, and the packaging that happens, where the participation of women is significant. And the third value chain from beyond cultivation that we have seen where participation of women is significant is in food processing, especially the papad, pickle, and these kind of SMEs that the women predominantly look at. So what Samunnati stumbled into, I should not sound too insightful saying this is how we have figured out. We actually stumbled into the participation of women in these value chains rather accidentally, when we were supposed to submit data on the gender diversity within the farmers, is when we realized that if we focus on these 3 value chains specifically, at that point in time when we stumbled, we had about 70% of our exposure in dairy segment, and hence the participation of women was significant. But over a period, the dairy has come down to about 30% in our overall exposure. We had to make choices that we will focus on these 3 value chains as a percentage of our overall engagement, and then look at fostering or furthering the participation of women in agriculture. Dairy predominantly, in addition to the cattle feed and other areas, having a milch animal and taking care of it is usually the lady of the household's job, and they are engaged in that. if I can just add to what Ajaita mentioned, the cattle feed as a dimension. 60% of the bandwidth of the women goes in feeding the animal. Going and getting the fodder, and in hilly terrains, it's quite an arduous task. Getting the fodder. How can we work in these value chains with the value chain players like a silage player or a cattle feed player, so that the supply of cattle feed happens while pouring the milk, so that the drudgery on the women can come down significantly. In the food processing, again, we have some interesting examples that are coming in, where we are promoting community kitchens, and these community kitchens are run by women, catering to some of the corporates who supply food to their employees, especially in the industrial hubs like Hosur or the Oragadam in Chennai, where these are all industrial hubs. And when you promote a community kitchen, while the community kitchen indeed employs the women, a lot of ancillary units can come up through the SHGs. The pickle making ancillary unit, the papad making ancillary unit, the vegetable cutting ancillary unit, so on and so forth. Just to give an order of scale, if you are indeed supplying about 50,000 meals, just imagine 50,000 pickle pieces would be a significant portion, and that generates a lot of employment. The last point on the value chains is there is also something that we can do around the food loss, especially in dairy, and we are indeed exploring if there is a possibility of innovating a miniature cheese making plant that women can run, because farmstead cheese is an important dimension, and more often than not, either the milk does not reach, or the milk needs to be consumed by the family if it does not reach the cold storage facility, because the life of milk is about three and a half hours. By bringing in cheese making, in a way, you are basically preserving milk in a different form, and the consumption of cheese is going up in this country. How can we make cheese making a household affair? Is the other dimension that we are looking at. Now, women as change makers is a significant potential that we are seeing from two dimensions. One, the BCs and Sakhis that got discussed in the previous call or previous discussion, is one area where a lot of aggregators can indeed be women, and they having the ability to reach out to 100, 200, 300 women can unlock a lot of potential. The other vehicle, of course, is the farmer producer organizations, and we are seeing a lot of green shoots there, where women only farmer producer organizations are coming up, women only FPOs are coming up. Not to talk about women participating as the BODs, board of directors in the FPOs, but there are certain women only FPOs that are coming up, and we as Samunnati would be working with them very closely. So I know we have very limited time, Sanjay, I pause here.
No, thank you, Anil. That is wonderful to see how you're taking these inputs and improving the lives of women, actually supporting them in what they do through your work. Puneet, coming to you, Kaleidofin is sort of in the business of creating financial products that help people achieve their goals in life, and over 90% of your customers are women. So I would like to hear from you in terms of your product thinking as to how you're building these products that help women improve their lives, and please.
Yeah. Thank you, Sanjay. It's been a pleasure to be on this panel. So like you said, what we are doing is we are engaging in the financial services vertical, trying to figure out what kinds of financial products would resonate with our customers. I think one of the first things that we had to do was to move away from selling financial products and services. Customers have been meeting their goals with or without financial services. We heard earlier during the panels about insurance. There is a very, very small demand for insurance products in general, which we are all trying to see how do you improve that. But what it also signals is that in a variety of ways, the customers have learned to live their life without some of these financial products. So one of the first focus of Kaleidofin was to move away from financial products and start to focus on customers' needs. Exactly like what Ajaita said, that when you start to look at what do customers really want, for example, if it's consumer durables, you actually start to create products around what the customer finally needs. What it does is it actually connects financial services to what the customer can experience. It moves financial services from being a complex construct into something that they know how it kind of fits into their kind of day-to-day stuff that they're wanting to achieve. The big thing for us, in addition to moving away from saying that we'll not start to work in financial services, but we'll start to engage in helping customers meet goals, came from our understanding of engaging with women customers. And I would say we were also exactly in Anil's boat to say we stumbled upon some of this rather than kind of saying that we were actually able to start with it. So two big things came to the fore. One, we looked at ourselves as a fintech company, but the issue is that in this country, when you go to low income segments, only 40% of the households own a smartphone in the first place. And when you look at women's ownership of smartphones, it's even lower. So a woman in the household is most likely going to be the last person who's going to have access to the smartphone. So that's basically another challenge, which basically meant that if we started to say that we'll develop an app and we'll go out to our customers, we knew that we'll not reach our target customers at all. So what we had to do was to create an assisted model, which works nicely with our direct to customer outreach, where initially we start to reach out to customers through physical means, but eventually the customer can become more and more digitally active. So you're not constrained of not having a smartphone in terms of starting your service with us. So that's basically the first part that we started to address. The second challenge that we had to address was women's ownership of assets. We can talk about a lot of things. We can say that we are already in the 21st century moving forward. But at the end of the day, very, very few women have any control over assets. And I was hearing the discussion on bank accounts and what does ownership of bank accounts do for the customers. In a variety of ways, a lot of our women customers actually got a bank account because they were taking a loan and there was a requirement for the customer to have a bank account without which the loan would not get disbursed into the customer's account at all. So not only do our women customers don't have assets, they actually have liabilities to take care of. And they're responsible for loans. The entire microcredit program is based on women borrowing. So what we again had to do was to create products and solutions which would work with very, very small amounts of savings, amounts that customers were able to kind of pull aside from day-to-day expenditure and actually then start to work towards creating a savings pool out of it. The third thing, again connected to this entire thing, was that we also realized in a variety of ways, the woman of the house is at least keeping some buffer, which is not known to anybody else in the family. There is a bit of a secret stash which comes in handy for a rainy day. And if you look at the regulators have always asked us to say that you need to send to a customer a confirmation of every message, a WhatsApp message or a SMS has to go to a customer informing them of the transactions. But the point is that message goes to the person who owns the smartphone or the phone in the house. And there is a lot of stuff like this, which becomes very hard for the woman to kind of take into account. So there are other behavioral, other cultural and social things that are happening, which kind of may require the woman of the house to keep it as a separate stash. So we included a privacy mode where we got our customers to choose what is the mode by which they would want to get some of these confirmations. And we tried to create a situation where these messages don't go to the members of the family, where the woman of the house may not want the messages to get into. So if I were to summarize in a nutshell, a lot of the work that we have done really has been to start by making sure that cognitively it's easy for our customers to understand, make sure that we are not dependent on technology where we know that the customer already is going to be excluded. Make processes really easy, so you're not really fumbling for your Aadhaar and PAN and this, that, and the other, and an assisted app interface where there's a person to helps you in a smooth onboarding, and then make sure that you can save in small amounts, take financial products in small amounts. We heard about saturation of products earlier, as well as take into account the unique requirements of a women customer. So that's in a nutshell, Sanjay, is what our journey is.
Great. No, thank you for that, Puneet. So I'm actually conscious that we have a small amount of time. So just a quick round going through all of us again. Is that in terms of going ahead, how do you see the what you're doing, how it's going to help you focus more. You're already doing a lot on the rural women side, right? So I just want to understand a little more on how you would see that changing in the near future, and particularly, given that we are here today at the launch of the FIRT initiative, which is research into this area. Just want to see how that would help inform what you're doing.
Yeah, sure. So we see a unique opportunity to scale quickly, leveraging the SAG infrastructure. We just signed 2 MOUs, both with the Rajasthan government and the UP government, because somewhere we're saying we need to embed this social commerce model for women to have a business opportunity at scale, which means partnering with the state level livelihood mission and leveraging their data to quickly recruit women, onboard them, and help and really incentivize them to start collecting more robust data faster. The goal is for us to then go from our 10,000 network to 100,000 Sahelis, but most importantly, 10 million then rural women as customers having a voice to be able to really design what they need, right? And I think the power of that economies of scale will really allow us to innovate a lot further and transform products. I think today we're just kind of bridging the latent demand and the demand, but tomorrow at a large level, could this become a market opportunity where you really are innovatively designing for these women? So changing the way you look at insurance, changing the way you're looking at health services, educational services, because I think that's where the economies of scale will allow us to really then drive the right players into this, and hopefully these women then become that platform. Last thing I'll just quickly say is that here's the other thing that's really exciting, is that women are very clearly now understanding the power of their voice. So when you're giving them that opportunity to really bring that voice out, you're seeing phenomenal work. We've been working with cluster level federations for quite some time now. And I have to tell you, there's a power dynamic that is shifting. All we need to do is give them the right tools and the right opportunities to then leverage that to become that at mass scale. So we're really excited about that opportunity. And that will be our change, to go from doers to enablers and really leveraging our technology and our sourcing to make that work.
Yeah, Anil, same question to you.
Answer is pretty simple, Sanjay. First and foremost, I will see how I can collaborate with Ajaita now, right? Because there is a significant, synergy that Samunnati sees
Absolutely
together with the partner. So SSG indeed is one of the building blocks of collectivization. So how can we leverage each other's strengths? And of course, Puneet and I are from the same stable, from the IFMR and ICICI. We are indeed talking about how do we take Puneet's liability products to the FPOs through the SSGs. But one channel that we are certainly hoping and aspiring to create is the village level entrepreneurs that are driven by local women, women in the communities. Well, we may call them as Sakhis, or take the inspiration from the Shakti, Ammas of Unilever, Hindustan Lever at that point in time. There are multiple efforts that have gone in. There is a lot of learning that exists in the market. We feel that some of them with the technology that is available today can bear fruit. And that's what we would be looking at doing. So village level entrepreneurs being women led is one potential that we certainly would like to unlock. Sanjay.
Puneet, same question for you again.
Yeah, so it comes as no surprise that I think everybody here is talking about leveraging existing networks, and all of us are talking to each other. Ajaita and I were sending a message on the sidelines to say we need to reconnect. And I think the big issue as we start to think about it is always going to be cost of acquisition at the end of the day. There is this entire thing that we all keep worrying about, which is to say that that the average value of what we are going to offer is going to be really small. And the only way in which you can do this is the cost of acquisition becomes smaller and smaller. And I think each one of us have tried to do something which is very similar. What we have done is, again, taking a cue from others here, we've actually tried to partner with NBFCs, NGOs, microfinance companies, banking correspondents. We have 40 such partners today. These 40 partners today service 15 million women customers through the country. And the interesting way in which we've structured our partnerships, for example, has been to say that each one of our partners is today breaking even. And therefore, when they introduce our solutions to their customers, they're able to do this at incremental costs. but more importantly, they're able to deepen their relationships with their existing customers. So it becomes a bit of a win-win. In the process, we are able to manage reducing our cost to onboard customers. And I would say that becomes an absolute paramount part here. The one thing that I would add in addition to this is that every time we've tried to structure or create a product, and we've tried to do it within the four walls here in our head office in Chennai, we have failed so badly that it's just not fun. Everything that we thought the customer wants, when you go to the field, the customer just wants something which is completely the opposite. And I think the conventional wisdom of people who are used to using financial products and services, and if they start to design products, it just starts to become completely something which doesn't work for our customers. So I would say that as we start to build these products, we have found that we need very strong product teams, both on the technology side, who are trying to simplify technology so our customers can use it, make use of lots of voice, lots of local language capabilities to be able to do this. In fact, when I talk about local language capabilities, we don't speak to our customers in Hindi in UP and Bihar. We actually speak to them in Bhojpuri and Maithili. That's the kind of connect that I'm talking to here. And a similar kind of a product manager equivalent is what you need on designing financial services, where a person is continuously simplifying the products, not from the baggage of who we are, but really sitting with women and designing these products. I would say these two would be my most important things as we start to think about scaling as we move forward.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions, Trisha, from the audience? No, okay, great. I see that we don't have any questions. So great. So want to just thank our panelists for spending the time with us and giving us their insights into how the entrepreneurial ecosystem is looking at the rural segment and empowering women. And we hope to see that this linkage that we have with the research will deepen, and we'll hopefully be able to get many more interesting products out there for our target user base.